Hello and welcome to the Kubernetes podcast from Google. I'm your host, Caslin Fields. In this episode, we explore the Kubernetes 1.37 release with release lead Dipesh Rawat. We talk about the release theme, deprecations and removals, and highlight a few of the most exciting new enhancements. But first, let's get to the news. Kubeflow has officially reached graduated status following TOC approval. The project started at Google in 2017 primarily to run TensorFlow on Kubernetes. It entered the CNCF at the incubation level in 2023. Congratulations to the Kubeflow team. Build packs also graduated. The project was jointly launched by Pivotal and Heroku in 2018 and incubated by the CNCF the same year. Build packs automatically detects application language and compiles the code source into an OCI-compliant container image without a Docker file. Congratulations to the Build packs team on this major milestone. Gateway API version 1.6.0 has been released by SIG Network, bringing Layer 4 networking capabilities to general availability. With this version, TCP route and UDP route have graduated from the experimental to the standard channel. This version marks the introduction of portable, vendor-neutral APIs to route Layer 4 traffic without the need for custom CRDs. The call for proposals for KubeCon Cloud Native Con EU 2027 is live. The event will take place in Barcelona, Spain on March 15th through 18th. The CFP is closing on October 11th this year. And that's the news. Hello and welcome. Today I am so excited to be doing our 1.37 release episode, as we always do, an episode where we interview the release lead for the Kubernetes releases. And so today we have Dipesh Rawat. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so hi, I'm Dipesh Rawat. So I'm software developer in IBM. So I have the privilege and the honor of leading the Kubernetes 1.37 release. So I've been involved in the release for past few release cycles from 1.31, gradually working my way up in the release team and finally landing to the end, which is the release lead, and hopefully I can leave the release in a better place.
So good 7 cycles already. What other roles did you do before becoming the release lead?
So I started my journey in the release team with the enhancement team. So primarily I was just interested because I have been the end user of Kubernetes, and seeing yearly we do 3 releases and monthly we do patches, and then I was interested how this thing works behind the curtains, because everybody has seen how it works, the end products we're doing kubectl and deploying our workloads. So just out of the curiosity, I applied in the shadow program and got selected in the enhancement team. Learned about how the enhancement process works, and it's interesting now. I think I weekly spend my time reading through the KEPs and how features and what was the motivations for that features. So that was interesting. Then I led the enhancement team, and then it opened the door of contributing to other parts of the community. And then I got involved in SIG docs, where currently I'm being the tech lead at the start of the year, which has been a good journey. Then I was involved in comms team, which deals with the communications of how the release is going to be communicated to the end users. Then I spent time being the release shadows, learning how the release lead works. And then finally we are here being the release lead.
Wow. Quite the journey. And starting in enhancements, and you mentioned that you have explored the KEPs over the years. I think each one of those releases had more enhancements than the last, didn't it?
Yes. And it is not stopping. We are not stopping.
Yeah. So let's talk about it. 1.37. Shall we go over I always like to ask the release lead when we talk about the release. First off, What is the release theme?
Okay. So I think personally to me, this is the hardest job for the release lead, to come up with a release theme and a logo that is going to represent all the work that the release team has done for the last 3 quarters. So for me, the release theme was something that was represent my roots. As my grandmother used to say, that how much you grow in life or how much big you become in life never forgets your root. So I wanted the theme to represent my root. So the theme for this release is Garhwal. So it is a region in northern part of India in the state called Uttarakhand, which is the region I belong to. So it is in the Himalayas. So you get to see the beautiful hills. So if I say Garhwal, so the first vision or the images that come into the head of the people is the mountain landscape. So you get the snow-capped Himalayas, the glacier, the rivers, the forest, and the mountain homes and beautiful sceneries. But for me, the memory from childhood living in this region is the people. So living in a mountain terrain is quite challenging, right? Yet they try to survive there. So you have homes, schools, various marketplace that needs to be connected through this rocky mountains. And then, like our parents used to joke in their childhood days, they used to cross river from going from one point to another. So despite living in this very difficult terrain, people are very dependent on each other. They are very collaborative. They are very sharing the knowledge and sharing whatever they have learned from their past generations. So all these principles somehow very much align with what we do in Kubernetes community. And for that matter, what we do in any open source community. So that's how the release theme or the name came as Garhwal.
I love it. And folks, you really need to see this release logo. I really hope that I run into you or someone from the release at a KubeCon who has some of the stickers for this one. Right now I have the 1.29 mandala release logo on my laptop. This one's gorgeous. We'd love to have one. But I love that story behind it of bringing your roots and people just working together to achieve their goals and just to survive. Mm-hmm. Maybe Kubernetes is not quite that level, but we do try to collaborate and at least help each other reach our goals.
Yes.
Wonderful. And as we were saying, there's so many enhancements in this one. Do you want to talk a little bit about what's in the release?
Yep. So in the release, we have 67 enhancements that the release team was tracking on the release board. So the release board for this release is also renamed to release tracking board. So previously it was called enhancement board. But then we realized that that board was doing too much rather than tracking the enhancement. So we have renamed it to release tracking board. So on the board, officially, we are tracking 67 caps that have made through this release. And out of those 67 caps, we have a mixture of caps as usual. Few have gone to alpha, beta, stable, and then there are few deprecations that are tracked via cap, and there are few deprecations that have happened outside of tracking through cap.
Deprecations and removals are always something that we want to dive into here as they might affect listeners who have to run Kubernetes clusters in production. So let's talk a little bit about the deprecations and removals in 1.37.
Yep, sure. So I think we have a bunch of deprecations. So the first one, I think what was communicated in our mid-cycle blog. So there is a kube proxy mode that is IPVS. So we added I think in the beginning to overcome the performance issue with IP tables. And since then we have NF tables that have gone and served us well. So we have decided that we are going to deprecate this IPVS mode in kube proxy. So if you are running your cluster kube proxy in this mode, please try to mitigate or move out of this IPVS mode. There is one more deprecation, which is an interesting one. So in kubectl, we have kubectl run command. So traditionally that run command is used to run resources that you supply via CLI argument. But for some reason, we had a -f or a -- file name flag, which is like supplying a declarative spec to that run command. And then it was running that YAML, but it did not feel quite right. So we have deprecated that flag. So kubectl run is no longer going to have that -- file name or -f flag. But if you want to run your declarative spec, there is always kubectl create -f or kubectl apply.
Yeah.
So those are not going away.
I've made a number of tutorials over the years trying to teach folks about the different ways that you can run a workload using kubectl. And that's always been a weird question to answer in those. Like, should I use kubectl run or kubectl apply? Both of them work. They're almost the same. But kubectl run is meant to be an imperative way to run things on the cluster. So it was really weird that it had the ability for you to specify a declarative file when it's going to run it imperatively. I'd have to look into it to see exactly what it does differently, but I think you can't update the YAML as easily. There's some commands when you do kubectl apply, like you can kubectl apply again and it'll change the YAML and update the running workload in the cluster. You can't do that with run. It's not going to update something that's already running in the cluster. So I guess maybe that's the main thing. It's just meant to run something a single time. So kind of weird to use the declarative files with it.
So
And
that's
then-
gone.
Yeah,
So
I'm excited about that. Hopefully makes it clearer for folks.
Yes. And I think one more thing we are deprecating is kubeDNS. So I think by default, we are just supplying core DNS, I think for a long time as our default DNS supply.
I guess that has been a while.
Yes. I think we starting from 1.13, I think we have started supplying core DNS. So unfortunately, kubeDNS, we are not able to keep up to speed with core DNS and the features, new features like endpoint slices and dual stack services that is supported in core DNS are not supported in kubeDNS. So we have decided that we are going to deprecate that project kubeDNS. So we have taken few stuff out of that project, split it into, I think that is the Node DNS local, and that is going to provide the support to core DNS, but kubeDNS as a project we are going to deprecate. So I think in 1.40 it's no longer going to receive any packages update or anything. So if for any reason in your cluster you are running core DNS, please plan to migrate towards newer core DNS so you get newer features also along with new security fixes.
And as we all know, it's always DNS.
Yes. It is.
It can't be DNS, but it always is. And so if there's one component that's worth upgrading in your systems, I think we can all agree that it's probably DNS.
Yes, it is.
So if you are somehow still using kubeDNS, this is your sign that it's finally time to move on to core DNS.
Yes.
And I wanted to come back to the IP tables one for a second too, the IPVS mode. I thought it was really funny in the feature blog, sneak peek blog. It mentioned that IPVS was like a fix for an issue with the way that we were using IP tables, but also it still used IP tables. So it seemed like maybe it was a little bit hacky anyway. So I think that makes sense for us to be deprecating at this point.
Yes.
So some solid deprecations. I think they are worthwhile to be deprecating and moving on from.
And I think one more is a interesting one is I think static pod can no longer use config maps and secrets. So I think there was a long outstanding bug that gave them the access to config maps and secret via config map ref and secret ref. Now that bug has been patched in 1.37 and there was a feature gate that let you opt out of that behavior. That feature gate is removed. So it's a request to all the cluster operators, please review your static manifests before upgrading so that you don't end up in a situation where it breaks your existing cluster.
That one was also listed in the sneak peek blog and definitely going to be important if you are in the situation where you have those pods using those things. It might be a little tough, honestly, for folks to tell if they have those things running in their cluster. Hopefully they've gotten some warnings since there has been some effort in this area, lots of discussion around how these types of pods should not have access to config maps and secrets.
Yes.
So hopefully it'll make sense to folks and you'll be able to see that you're running these and be able to move on from them. So definitely check out the feature blogs on each of these deprecations if you're worried that they may affect you. And you can get a rough overview of what they are in a little bit more depth in the sneak peek blog, which I don't know if it has the links, but it should at least have the KEP numbers if you need to look up the KEP for the deep details.
Yes.
And then beyond those few deprecations and removals, there are a whole bunch of alpha, beta, and stable features going into 1.37. Would you like to give us some of the highlights?
Yep. And I am holding my urge to say 67 caps and not 6-7 caps just to know. Oh, it's so very...
I feel so trendy.
Yeah. So just not with this release, with every release, I think the enhancements that we get in a Kubernetes release can be classified into few categories or buckets. So for 1.37, I would like to say about few caps and few buckets that I would keep them in. So first bucket I would say is, let's say, cost and efficiency. So for this bucket, I would say the cap that comes to my mind is the HPA scale to 0, which is horizontal pod autoscaler scale to 0. So this cap implementation has gone to beta in 1.37. So what it essentially does, it allows the user to specify minimum replica as 0. So this is for objects or resources that use objects or external metrics to scale up So this is very useful in situation where you are doing batch processing, or you are using queues or event-driven services, or you are using some high computing jobs that rely on some external mechanisms to scale themselves up. So when the demand is zero, or they are sitting idle, so they can be scaled down to zero. And as soon as the demand is there, they will be scaled up. So it will save you the cost of running these high level workloads.
I'm seeing a lot of demand and interest in scaling features in distributed computing right now in this AI era, where we're running lots of agents, lots of inference workloads, a few training workloads.
Yes.
And it's shifting the landscape for what these workloads need from their underlying infrastructure. And since a lot of these workloads are very peaky, they have to do a lot at certain times, and they are basically unneeded at others. More scale to zero is good stuff.
Yes. And hopefully it can graduate to stable as early as possible. So please give us feedback and raise issues if you encounter any.
Already in beta, so you can turn it on if you want to check it out. But keep an eye on that one. Mm-hmm. What else?
So moving on to the second bucket, I think this would be the most fun or trendy bucket that people are interested in, is modern workloads or AI or distributed workloads. So few caps that I could put in this bucket is, first is the gang scheduling. So again, this is one of the caps that has gone to beta in 1.37. So the idea behind is, traditionally Kubernetes is going to schedule pod individually, right? So for modern workloads like AI training workloads or high computing jobs, so an entire workload is only going to make progress when and all the pods that are belonging to that workload is going to run. So now gang scheduling gives Kubernetes the approach of one or none. What that means is, it is going to prevent workloads, if it is running partially, to consume resources while the other resources are still in a pending state. So either it's going to run your entire workload once the cluster is available, or the resources are available in the cluster to run, or it's not going to run your resources and it's going to wait while the resources are going to be made available. So the scheduling is a little bit more smarter in a way.
This is also a use case I've heard a lot about recently, where if you have a really big resource intensive workload and you don't have the resources to run it, but it can't run with partial resources, then there's no point in keeping those resources from your other workloads while you wait to be able to get them all. So there's been a lot of interest in this gang scheduling feature.
Mm-hmm. And another cap in this modern workload bucket I would put is workload aware preemption. Again, this is one of the cap that has gone to beta in 1.37. So traditionally the scheduler is going to clean up low priority pods without thinking about whether the cluster has the capacity to run the newer request that it has got. Now with this enhancement or with this implementation, the scheduler is going to treat a workload as a group of resources or a pod group. So it is going to make use of your cluster resources more efficiently rather than just kicking out a low priority job.
Yeah. One of the things that our engineering director for GKE of the specific group within engineering that works on open source Kubernetes has talked about a lot recently. We've had a couple of keynotes at KubeCons. There was a breakout session we did together at Next where he talked about the concept of workload aware scheduling in Kubernetes. There's a bunch of features like the gang scheduling, dynamic resource allocation, workload aware preemption, lots of features going in right now to just generally make Kubernetes scheduling more workload aware so that it's smarter about how it does things with your workloads. Whereas in the past, the only things it knows about your workload are what you tell it in the declarative YAML file, and a lot of that is managed by labels, and if you get your labels wrong, then the whole thing is incorrect. So dynamic resource allocation helps with that by making the scheduler natively aware of the hardware running underneath. Gang scheduling makes it smarter by allowing it to schedule larger groups of hardware together for the workload. So, and then workload aware preemption, of course, being smarter about when we can preempt the workloads. All of it adds up to just a better experience for your workloads on Kubernetes.
Yes, it does.
Wonderful.
And before moving on to the next bucket, I think it would be injustice if I don't give a shout out to DRA in this modern workload.
DRA.
So we have a few announcements in the umbrella of DRA that have graduated to stable, which includes now device taints and tolerations and external resource requests that has gone to stable. So in general, so Kubernetes is going to be more aware and more efficient of when you are going to request those specialized hardware. And then there is also now provision with taints and toleration to mark those hardwares as unusable. For example, if there is a bad GPU in your cluster, you can mark it as unusable so that none of the new workloads take advantage of it, and then so on and so forth.
Interesting. With the whole concept of dynamic resource allocation being to make the scheduler natively aware of the underlying hardware, I'm very curious to look into how the taints and tolerations are going to work in DRA managed resources. I haven't seen that one yet. It wasn't in the sneak peek blog, so I look forward to that feature blog.
Okay.
Guess I could also look up the KEP.
Yeah, I think we kept few surprises for the main release blog.
Guess so.
So I think moving on to the next bucket would be, I think, security, and I would say day 2 operations or general cluster operations. So for the security, the two main caps that come to my head for 1.37. So both these caps are under the SIG auth special interest group. So both of these have gone to stable. So first is the pod certificate and the second one is cluster trust bundle. So basically they give us now the first class way to provide private keys and certificates and cluster bundle to the pods. So there are now first class way or native way of sharing those private keys between the pods. So those are some interesting security caps. And finally, I think after 9 years, the Kubernetes, the metrics.kh.io API has finally graduated to stable from being in beta. So this API gives us pod and node level CPU and memory metrics that is used by kubectl top and the horizontal pod autoscaler. So just for awareness that while we are in the transition phase and we are aware that this API was in beta for a very long time, so the beta API is not going anywhere during this transition period, but please do make an effort to read the documentation for the stable API and try to migrate from the beta API.
This one was also in the feature blog, and I was so excited to see the metrics API. Like you said, it's been around for a very long time. I was honestly surprised that it wasn't already stable, but everything's got to get there at some point. So
yes.
Definitely check that one out if you're using Kubernetes metrics, if you're already using the beta version of the API. Stable version, yay.
Yes.
And there's a little overview of what's new in the stable version in the sneak peek blog. And of course, there will be a feature blog that will go deeper into detail.
Yes. And then last but not the least, KYAML has gone to stable in 1.37. So this was introduced in 1.34 as alpha. Then it graduated to beta in 1.35. And then we added some confirmation testing and hardened the implementation. And then finally now it's in stable. So it is a more or less ambiguous subset of YAML that is specifically catered towards Kubernetes. So one thing to keep in mind is we are not deprecating YAML, or YAML is not going anywhere. So your existing manifests, your toolings, your pipeline, your scripts are going to work as it is. There is no need to rewrite all your manifest into KYAML. It's just an option that if you want to write your manifest, in my biased opinion, in a better way, you can use KYAML. So you can use kubectl get -o KYAML command to see the KYAML equivalent of a resource. And every KYAML is a valid YAML. So in theory, any KYAML you can use with any of the kubectl versions from the past.
Interesting. I've had some interesting conversations with folks recently about KYAML, and they're specifically about docs and how we start talking about that now that it's in stable. But challenge to all you listeners out there, have you used KYAML? Do you care about it? What is your thought on adopting KYAML or a slightly simpler version of YAML? Would love to hear from you. Ping us on social media or email us or something. We would love to know what people are thinking about KYAML. But stable. It mentions here too that it mentions clear kubectl output. So is one goal for the KYAML project to make the output of kubectl commands a little bit easier to read? Okay. That's interesting. All right. And is that all of your top features.
Yeah.
Out of the 67 different features.
Yes, I would say up to the 67. And like I said, all those 67 can be put into these various buckets. And I think there are a lot of everyday operation features also that have gone to stable. So please do check out the release communications and the release notes and pick out the features that you find interesting and do give us feedback on it.
Speaking of diving deeper into these, with 67 enhancements, I imagine that not every enhancement is going to get its own blog this time.
No.
I think we haven't been doing that for a while, but just to check in.
Yes.
Yeah. So just watch out for the enhancement blogs that come out. We'll try to make sure that we have them for all of the most interesting ones.
Yes.
But if there's a feature out there that you don't see a blog for, you can always check out the KEP for greater details.
Yes. And there will always be documentation.
Yeah. Documentation or test in production.
Yes.
Solid suggestions from the Kubernetes podcast from Google. I have a sticker on my laptop actually from Charity Majors, who wrote the book on observability is really the more relevant thing here. And the sticker says, test in prod or live a lie. So try out these new features.
Yes.
So speaking of trying them out, moving to a new version of Kubernetes is not easy in a lot of cluster environments. And I think it's always good to talk about why should our listeners go through the pain that might be involved with them moving their clusters to 1.37.
I would suggest that please do read the release notes and the documentation that we release along with the release of Kubernetes packages, that what has gone into the release. So for 1.37, like I previously mentioned, that we have a lot of interesting KEPs that cater towards security, to making the existing cluster more resilient or helping with the AI workloads, making the scheduler more workload aware. So all these new features are being put into the code base to help with the day-to-day changing workloads. Like we see a lot of AI workloads being run on production. So these major features are going to help you run those workloads efficiently. And also being on the latest supported version of Kubernetes is always a very good practice, so that you have all the security and the patches and you are also ready for migrating to a future release when the time comes. Very important note, please read through the deprecations, removal and all the warning and all the migration guides that we publish for all the removals and deprecations. Nothing is sudden in Kubernetes, so we will never remove any features suddenly from one release. So please do please do read all those migration guides, and in your cluster config or in your migration, please audit them. And if there are any features that are going to be deprecated or removed in the newer features, it is good that you prepare those migrations from now and see how those features work, get familiar with it so you can exploit it better. And last but not the least, my biased opinion, if none of this convinces you, I think this release has the coolest logo of all the past releases.
So true.
So I think you should upgrade your cluster to this 1.37 release.
I don't know if it's the coolest. There's some pretty cool Kubernetes logos, but this one's definitely up there. Definitely a good reason. But to review on the deprecations and removals, we talked about, I think 4. Were those all deprecations, or was there one removal in there?
So there is one more thing to be keeping in mind. It's not a direct deprecation, but the future removal of C groups V1.
Yeah.
So already in 1.35, the kubelet is going to reject the nodes which are in C group V1. But we did have a temporary workaround or a configuration that we have provided to work around. Please don't use it as a long-term solution and try to migrate to a newer version, which is C group V2, which is also going to unlock new features such as in-place pod scale, sizing, and memory quality of service. So this is going to be removed in future. So please audit your clusters and try to move off of C group V1.
We've been talking about this in the communications sub-project, and we're like, if you are still on C groups V1, please tell us about it, because we just want to know how. Most Linux distributions have moved to cgroups v2 already. And if you're using it through a provider, you probably are not using cgroups v1. So you've got to be on a very interesting configuration that you probably made yourself or that someone made for you several years ago if you're still on cgroups v1. Very curious. So if anybody out there is, let us know, and also consider not doing that. Consider how you can move on to cgroups v2, because that will eventually be removed, but not in 1.37.
Yep.
But a good reminder. Thank you so much, Dipesh. I hope our folks out there are all looking forward to upgrading to 1.37.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
That brings us to the end of another episode. If you enjoyed the show, please help us spread the word and tell a friend. If you have any feedback for us, you can find us on social media at KubernetesPod or reach us by email at kubernetespodcast@google.com. You can also check out the website at kubernetespodcast.com, where you'll find transcripts, show notes, and links to subscribe. Please consider rating us in your podcast player so we can help more people find and enjoy the show. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.